Sia. The name her mother gave her meant eternity. The princess whose heritage to the king is evident through her crystal blue eyes would not have magic. But even so, her mother believed she'd find happiness in an ordinary life as she kissed her daughter's forehead, imbuing Sia with her own magic. The mother's last words uttered as tears fell from her eyes were, "Keep him company for me, my beloved daughter." The servants came flooding in with the passing of Queen Diana. The king ordered all of her things to be handled by the higher-ups and burned absolutely. Lastly, he ordered that his daughter never appear before him again. Sia was left with only a few servants at the Redstone Palace, all of whom spoke of how the king did not care about his own daughter, their only princess. Even as a baby, though, she could somehow understand their words. Falling asleep, she'd become lucid, hearing her name called repeatedly. And seeing a book encased within crystal, she was compelled to chomp on it, but would quickly find out it wasn't too tasty. The crystal slowly cracked, emitting a bright light until the book within was released. The information within came flooding into her, detailing a story of the future. Athanasia de Alger Obelia would be punished for the crime of using black magic without permission and for attempted regicide, the attempted killing of her father, the king. As tears dripped down her eyes, she swore the claims weren't true. She was only doing this for him. She just wanted him to look at her just once. However, King Claude would coldly respond, "I don't have a daughter like you. What I only see is filth and degradation." She would then be sentenced to where all exiled criminals were sent, the Sacred Tower, imprisoned for life. But being desperate for her father's love, she chose to disappear rather than suffer. Sia woke up crying from another night of the same scary dream. She got coddled by the head maid of the Ruby Palace, her personal nanny, Lillian. Lillian was sweet towards her. Sia knew Lillian was the daughter of a count and best friend to her mother Diana. Sia was so thankful she was here. Otherwise, she would have starved to death from lack of care by the other servants. Sia remembered that this world was a magical world. And legend has it, in the Sacred Tower lies the most powerful magician. Lillian would often read her the tale about how this most powerful magician could easily destroy the kingdom. And when Lillian would ask who was the most powerful in their entire kingdom, Athy would point at the image of her father. Lillian teased that Athy was so smart for being able to recognize him as an infant, but how could she not? In her mind, he was the bad guy who exiled her in her dream. She couldn't believe this book referred to him as a great emperor. She saw him as a super tyrant. She couldn't even sleep because just the thought of him made her so mad. Every time she thought about being exiled, it brought her to tears. 3 years later, Athy would awaken from sleeping in a pile of books because she could hear her servants talking. She would ask where they were going, and they explained Lillian requested they decorate the palace with flowers since they were in bloom. Athy wanted to join them. The servants had a merry time decorating with Athy. She had really grown on them. To them, she was their cute little princess. Athy skipped around, looking to take the remaining flowers back, until she spotted the one servant who didn't seem to love her as much. This particular servant seemed a little off, questioning why this place was made by the king for the queen to make her happy, because it did not contain treasures, but instead ordinary things. Athy would happily greet the servant, who made the excuse she was new here and just got lost. The maid had no idea that this bright, smiling little girl was the princess. With Athy telling her she was more familiar with this place, the maid asked where all the golden things were. So, Athy pointed first to their grain supply, then bread, then sunflowers. Finally, the maid lost her mind and outright said she was looking for treasures. Now that Athy understood, she told the maid she could have just told her she wanted to steal. The maid tried assuring Athy that's not what she meant at all. But to this, Athy told her the valuable things here couldn't be seen with the eye. Quote, "If I don't make it clear, I've wasted my time. Come with me." And begrudgingly, the maid followed. There, the two spied on the kitchen. The maid thought she'd been tricked again. But no, Athy explained the palace was abandoned by the king long ago. Thus, all the treasures, if there were any, were long gone. That's when Hannah appeared, holding a delicious plate of sweets. The maid began to drool, seeing the plate had real gems. Athy then decided to make her attack, getting right in front of Hannah to cutely beg for chocolate. Hannah gushed. Athy's charms were super effective. Sasha then came over to tell Hannah they weren't allowed to give Athy chocolate before dinner. But with a tug at her dress, Athi's charms worked again. Now the scolding maid was handing over the chocolate personally. Sasha told Athi not to tell Lillian, otherwise they'd all be in trouble. And Athi agreed, parting the maid with a sweet kiss on the cheek. Shortly, she'd convinced the two maids that Lillian was calling them and signaled the conniving maid that the coast was clear. Opening the drawers to the valuable finery, the maid greedily took all the jewels off of them. However, Athi would take away the pouches filled with jewels, apologizing as she told the maid these belonged to her. And in response, the maid picked up the kitchen knife, threatening Athi. But the little princess saw exactly how she was going to win. Athi began her run, narrowly dodging a wicked knife toss and pulling the rope. It was game over. The decoration from the ceiling came crashing onto the maid. Lillian and the rest of the servants came running, not expecting the sight of the maid being trapped and their princess being victorious. With the maid being taken away, turns out she got in using someone else's identity. Athi was fully prepared, and so happy Lillian was safe as a result. Because of the prophecy Athi had gotten from her dream, she saw her beloved nanny finding the intruding maid one evening and getting stabbed to death as a result. Now Athi could see that prophecies could be changed. This was Sia, a magical princess who didn't know magic. Her secret being, she could see the future. And while her future held scary things, she wouldn't let herself succumb to them. That evening, Felix brought His Majesty the last batch of documents. Before leaving, Felix nervously explained the story he heard about the princess catching a thief in the Ruby Palace. However, Claude did not want his time wasted with useless stories. In the magic tower, Lucas awakened. He could sense someone was changing the fate of the Obelian Empire, and now felt compelled to seek them out. In a certain magical land, there lived a pitiful princess. The princess's mother died soon after giving birth to her. Her father, far from loving her, found her detestable, having said he never wanted to see her again. Thus, the princess grew up without the love of the emperor, and for a long time, she was alone. Then, when she was 9 years old, she met him for the first time. This man is my only family, she thought to herself. She did everything she possibly could to win her father's love. But when she was 14, at her debutante ball, her hopes were shattered. The truth was that the emperor had another daughter. Jeanette was like an angel, having captured everyone's attention and love in mere moments, including, of course, their father's love. To win her father's love, the pitiful princess dirtied her hands with black magic. In the end, her father banished her, and her life came to an end. Athi groaned over the story. She was certain the princess no one loved was her. Even just being a supporting character, Athi felt bad for herself. No, she wouldn't accept this as her life. She swore she'd break free. Because of that incident with the thief, now more people were guarding the kitchen. Looks like it was going to be a lot more difficult for Athi to gather funds for her escape. Even so, she wasn't going to let something like this ruin her plans. As a baby, she was enamored with the finer things. Lily could see that, and thus gave her tons of golden toys. She would grow up using her doll eyes to charm the maids into giving her chocolate. And while the snack was tasty, her real goal was to gather the expensive pins that held the balls for her stash. According to her dreams, she'd run into her father at 9 years old. So, all she had to do was make her escape before she turned 9. And of course, she'd take Lily with her. Noticing she got some chocolate on her hand, she decided to go wash up in a nearby fountain. But while washing, she almost fell in. But catching herself and seeing her reflection, she was reminded of how people told her she looked exactly like her mother, with the eyes of her father. Only the imperial family inherited these jeweled eyes. However, she didn't inherit any magical powers. She wondered if this was why her father hated her. Despite everyone saying she's the only one who inherited the eyes, she knew the other princess, Jeanette, existed. She hit her head repeatedly, reminding herself there was no point in thinking about that, because once she had enough money, she was running away. Security was a lot tighter at the palace these days, so she had to hide her stuff out here. She stumbled upon a new place, unfamiliar to her. This wasn't the Ruby Palace. It seemed empty, but didn't look too fancy. She wondered if this was a storehouse. Getting hungry, she decided to head to the kitchen, and overheard the maids mention that per His Majesty's orders, the Ruby Palace would undergo a detailed inspection to prevent someone from breaking in ever again. Hearing the inspection would especially happen in her room, Athi panicked, running back to gather the rest of her treasures. She felt a sigh of relief, counting them all and finding they were still there. She would then strap her treasures to herself and make her stealth mission towards her treasure mound outside. However, arriving where her treasures were buried, she'd find a squirrel chewing at them. She couldn't let it go, so she went through her things, pulling out a peanut to hopefully lure it. And it worked. Thinking it wouldn't be safe to bury her stash in the woods anymore, she thought of a place she could possibly hide them next. Heading back to the empty place, she wondered if this was her own destined treasure. Eventually, she came across some golden statues, and wondering if they were real gold, she decided to take a bite. She'd soon experience horror as the man behind her asked how long this little bug had been in his palace. Seeing he had the same jeweled eyes as her, she immediately knew this man was her father. But why were they meeting now? He thought he'd seen her face before, but all she could think about was how they were supposed to meet 4 years from now. This was far too early. Realizing Athy looked a lot like that woman, he reached towards her, and even though Felix tried to stop him, Claude lifted Athy's chin with his finger, uttering the name that woman named her, Athanasia. Pinching her cheek, he pointed out how she's grown very round. He continued to play with her cheeks a bit, and this confused her, because in her dreams, he wasn't supposed to have interest in her at all. She couldn't comprehend. He then called for her to have tea with him, but she wanted no part. Trying to escape, he caught her immediately, and as she flailed around, the pouch of jewels flung off of her body. Oh no, she'd been caught! Now having tea with him, she looked up, seeing her father as an intimidating golden dragon. She was as scared as a little rabbit, wondering if he was waiting for her to confess her crimes. Could it have been because of the jewels, or because of the bite marks she left on the statues? She could have been punished easily for either. With her being silent the entire time, he asked if she knew how to speak. He found this boring, so she brightly answered, "Athy can talk." After hearing her voice, he asked why she was silent. Felix then came by, offering her cake to hopefully calm her nerves. He then told Claude he's heard that everyone was shy around strangers at the princess's age, and in response, Claude ordered Felix to leave the room. Athy began to panic. She didn't want to be left alone with her father. He then asked Athy if she knew what her name meant, and explained the meaning was undying and eternal. Athanasia was a monarch's name. In Obelia, only the rightful heir was bestowed a name with such powerful meaning. Even he wasn't allowed a name as powerful as hers. To give their child a name like this, he saw Diana as a truly bold woman. Athy wondered if she made her father angry. He wasn't the Empress's son, so he had no place in the imperial succession. He defeated his cruel older brother and took the throne, but even now, he's still criticized for not having an emperor's name. She wondered if he didn't like her name. He then told her to eat, and so she nervously responded that the cake looked delicious and began digging in, thinking if she didn't, he might kill the maids. She desperately wanted to go back to the Ruby Palace and see Lily. Asking who taught her manners, Claude was reminded of Lillian York, who 5 years ago appeared before him, asking to look after his daughter. Lillian and Diana were the only two people who blocked his path and did not die for it. He then asked Athy if she knew who he was, and she at first didn't know how to respond. She hesitated until finally saying, "You're my papa, right?" This caused his eyes to widen, glimmering on the outside. She panicked on the inside, calling him Papa of all things. She thought she was done for. She felt she should have called him His Imperial Majesty the Emperor, like a normal person. Lily was about to order the maids to look for the princess, but that was when Athy would come running after her, with Felix following closely behind. Now hearing her father would be calling for her again soon from Felix, Athy felt so sick, she puked at the idea of you not hyping the video and subscribing to my channel. Because here at My Shoujo Weekly, you're going to have tons of stories to listen to within the shoujo genre. Looking for stories about reincarnation? I got that. Looking for stories about villainesses? I got that too. What about handsome vampires? Oh, come on. You know I definitely got that. Alright, enough self-plugs. Let's get back to the story. Heading to meet her father, the princess tugged at Lily. She was scared, but ultimately made her way to where Claude sat alone on his throne. After Lillian graced herself, Claude recognized it had been 5 years since he'd last seen her. She felt sick. Even knowing while everyone said her father was a great man, she knew he was actually cruel and heartless. He stood up to explain he couldn't look after Athy because he's been busy with government affairs. Athy felt he was lying, but regardless, her life has been fun so far. She wished he'd just leave her alone. Staring at her directly, she suddenly got startled and started imagining she was just a palace mushroom. But her wishes would be in vain, because after hearing about the incident at her palace, He now said he'd be looking after her, declaring she'd be getting treatment befitting a princess. Athy never imagined things would end up with her sitting outside with her father at the Ruby Palace. She was supposed to avoid him and live quietly. After all, the tragedy in the future was caused by her running into him. As long as she never met him, she would have been able to change her future. She was so frustrated. But now seeing all the various desserts put in front of her, she couldn't help but drool and wondered if this is what he meant by princess treatment. She questioned if the food was poisoned, promising herself she wouldn't give in and eat it. And right after, he'd ask why she wasn't eating, questioning if she thought he had poisoned it. Now she thought he was a mind reader. She tried the excuse of Lily saying if she ate too many sweets, she'd get cavities. But he'd shut it down, reminding her she had no problem eating them yesterday. And so, she nervously dug in, and one bite was enough to make her glow. She really started chowing down, not wanting to waste a bite. Getting to her last cake, she was surprised to hear her father say he enjoyed this, and wanted her to join him at tea time every day. She couldn't believe it, and that's how her life of seeing her father every day began. She questioned why he suddenly started playing Happy Family. It made her so anxious, she tripped over herself. But every once in a while, something nice happened. She munched on a gold statue, and he thought nothing of it. She tried to show proper etiquette, and it only made her more clumsy and nervous. Every mistake, she thought it'd be all over for her, but for some reason, it seemed like her father didn't intend to criticize her. She wondered if he regretted what happened to her, and was trying to be kind. But either way, she wasn't as scared of him as she was before. On a particular day while getting dressed by Lily, she was told about beautiful flowers on a lake she'd be seeing with her father. Upon greeting him, he commented she seemed more, well, fleshed than before. Whatever that means. She'd compliment him right back by saying he was wonderful too, making both Lily and Felix nervous. Her father didn't respond to it, simply telling her to follow him instead, leaving her panting, scared. Athy dashed all around, collecting the wonderful flowers she wanted to show Lily, until finally, she stumbled upon the lake. Being presented the boat, Lily was hesitant in letting Athy go, since she wasn't comfortable on water yet. But Claude assured her it'd be fine. The fine, however, would be him improperly grabbing her by the collar into the boat. She looks cute at least. Floating along, she thought things were awkward with him staring at her the whole time. She didn't know what to say. She could hardly breathe. He finally asked what she was thinking, and scrambling to find something to say, she burst out, "Papa, your hair is all sparkly. It's pretty. Athy loves it." While crying internally because every time she saw it, she thought of all her gold. Noticing she liked sparkly jewels, he reminded her he had hers, and that she should come get them sometime. She wasn't brave enough for that, though. Time passed so leisurely, and the wind carried the scent of flowers. She was really enjoying this, but come to think of it, she wondered how they were moving since the boat wasn't being paddled with oars. That's when she figured it must be her father's magic. She noticed his clear blue eyes, like sapphires, and wondered if her eyes looked like that too. She questioned if she could use magic. Would her father like her? Spotting a blue lotus flower, she was so enamored by it, she went into a trance and tried to grab it. But when she held it, it pulled her in. Something else was trying to drown her. She desperately wanted her father to save her, but in this moment, could only see when he had turned her away. She began to submit to her fate, as vines pulled her deeper into the water. However, she couldn't tell her father had jumped in to save her. She felt so cold, but warm in one particular spot. When they were out of the water, as she coughed it up, she saw her father drenched. She couldn't believe he actually saved her. Felix would go try to give the king his cape, but Claude would say there was no need, then proceed to quickly dry Athy off with a single stroke of magic. He then told Felix to teach Athy how to swim starting tomorrow, because it wouldn't make an amusing story if his daughter were to drown. Athy couldn't believe he would call her by such an endearing familial title. Walking away, he suddenly felt dark magic shock him, but continued on. After Athy returned to her palace, a combination of shock and cold confined her to bed. She couldn't stop thinking about what happened that day. Lily explained what she had grabbed was a dream lotus. They create illusions to draw on living creatures. They typically weren't dangerous as long as a lot didn't congregate together. and only those who didn't possess magic were drawn to the flower's allure. At night, where Claude went to see visions of his late wife, she seemed happy to see him. He thought he'd forgotten things like emotions a long time ago, but could tell he didn't hate his daughter. As he wrestled with the darkness, all Felix could do was watch. He hoped one day light would illuminate a path for his king. The next day, Athy was presented with a flock of new maids, and then Felix kneeling before her. As of this day, he's been provisionally appointed as her guardian knight, and he looked forward to serving her. In a dream, Athanasia heard a beautiful voice singing, comparing the timbres to that of a fairy. It was so strange. She couldn't see the woman clearly, but she knew the voice of her mother felt nostalgic. Then quickly, she woke up in tears. Yawning tiredly, being carried by Felix early in the morning, we learned she was having breakfast with her father today because he wanted to see her. Although she was a bit skeptical he'd ever say that. Felix then dropped her inside Claude's room, telling her if she woke His Majesty up, he'd be delighted. She tried to make her escape, but it was no use. So, she began playing her childlike whimsy of saying, "Papa, I'm coming in," and finding where her father slept. She wondered why he was using this sofa instead of a bed. She felt he was a completely different person than in her dreams. The father in her dreams would never let anyone see him this vulnerable. Poking his cheek, she decided to play a prank for all those scary things he did to her in her dreams. She pulled his cheeks until they became red, and oh man, she knew she was going to be in trouble. So she sang him a lovely lullaby, and he continued his sleep in peace. At breakfast, Athanasia tried to take the topic away from her father's red cheeks to mention there were so many things she'd never seen here before. She gave him some nervous giggles as well. A bell started chiming, and Felix reminded Claude that Duke Alpheus would be arriving any moment now, and the Duke was also asking the princess to be present. Athy had no idea what was going on, but starting tomorrow, her father wanted her here for breakfast every morning. She wasn't the most excited for this, but decided to put thinking about it away by exploring the palace since her father permitted her. She found a room full of the Obelian Empire's royal family portraits, hoping to see a painting of her mother. However, none of the ones hung up had her, until she found one covered under cloth with Diana's name on it. But, revealing it, the painting was blotched with burns. Athy could just imagine the visions of the fire. She had no idea her father hated her mother so much. She rolled around, trying to shake off her sadness, hoping she wouldn't have any dreams that night. The next day, she graced herself before her father for breakfast, and her maids gushed over her cuteness. She tried her best to show out how adorable she was for her father, but to her, it seemed like he just ignored it all. Being with him, she realized she did all the talking. It made her wonder if her father found her boring. But then again, none of that mattered. If she wanted to live, all she needed to do was not mention her mother. She got a little curious about his tea and asked to have some too, and upon tasting a cup of her own, she liked it, saying, "It's like flowers are blooming in Athy's mouth." Yes, as a reminder, she talks in third person. Felix became shocked. The air had a tense awkwardness. Athanasia now wondered if she said something she shouldn't have. Felix then hurriedly explained it was Rive tea, a type of black tea from her mother's homeland. Diana often said the exact same thing as Athy, that the tea was like flowers blooming in her mouth too. However, Claude suddenly responded he had no such memory. He then ordered Felix to leave for chattering too much today. Athy was disheartened by her father's reaction, as if he was telling her not to mention her mother, and taking his leave, he told her she was too young for tea and to drink milk from now on. Her heart broke. She wondered if he was starting to hate her. She burned the pictures she drew of her and him, knowing the impending future of him not needing her. She couldn't believe she was starting to forget. After that day, he'd skip out on their meals together due to official business. She'd wander the palace and overhear Felix and Lily talking about how Claude's demeanor changed when there was talk of her mother. They knew she was likely curious. However, all of the Empress Consort's things were destroyed 5 years ago. There weren't any statues or portraits left that showed what Diana looked like. Felix suddenly suggested asking Claude to use his magic that could show memories to Athy, so she outburst for him not to. She didn't want them to talk about her mother and make her father hate her. Felix tried to calm her, swearing on his mother's name that Claude didn't hate her or his late wife, and that if she didn't believe him, he simply needed to show her the truth. Taking her to the palace, Felix explained why her father didn't keep guards on him. Claude casted protective magic for his own safety, and anyone who tries to enter without permission would be repelled. For that reason, his palace required no guards, and no one tried to approach. Reaching the boundary, Felix put Athy down and struck the barrier directly, receiving a reflective cut on his cheek as a result. He wanted to demonstrate that anyone deemed hostile would not be able to enter. In Felix's words, His Majesty trusted her and Lady Diana with all his heart. Where Claude was working, he used his magic to restore his daughter's burnt drawings Felix retrieved for him. Athy then entered, reminding him she hadn't seen him in 2 days now, and brought up how Felix told her if she asked, he would show her her mother. She tried to take off in case he was too busy, but he'd pick her up, and in his room, he'd sit her down on his bed. Since she wasn't sleepy, he asked her to sing him a song that drove the nightmares away like before. This made her wonder if he was just pretending to sleep that other time. She told him she forgot it, so he asked her what would make her remember, telling her disobeying an imperial order was a grave crime. You best believe she remembered immediately. While she sang, he used his magic to display a beautiful night sky, until she eventually knocked out. He saw her as impudent, much like her mother, and used his magic to fill her mind with what she'd been wanting. In her dream, she could see and hear her mother clearly as she called out to Claude. Athy didn't know her father could smile so warmly, and seeing her mother giggle, it's like she was saying, "This is true happiness." The father and daughter napped peacefully together. The next morning, Felix would come into the room, informing Claude his guest had arrived. Claude took one look at Athy sleeping peacefully before leaving, and as he left, she woke up, wondering where her papa had gone. Before Claude, Duke Alpheus claimed it was necessary to choose a study companion for Athy, supposedly for the sake of the kingdom's future. And of course, the Duke definitely had someone in mind. Seeing the princess's magic had yet to awaken, he proposed his son, Ezekiel, to be the most suited. Athy discreetly watched from above, and upon seeing the Duke, she gasped in shock. In her dreams, Duke Alpheus used Jeanette to increase his standing. Ezekiel was his only son, who desperately fell in love with Jeanette, and now he was to be her study companion? Athy wondered if the Duke was trying to garner favor with her father, especially now that he loved her. She would interrupt the Duke's praises of his son, saying Athy was scared when she woke up and didn't see her father. Upon seeing her, Duke Alpheus gave her quite the nasty look. Claude then called her to sit on his lap, and the Duke properly greeted her, while bringing up his suggestion of the study companion. She began probing him about how well-read his son was, and when he found it difficult to answer, Athy let him know she didn't want a study companion who was dumber than her. The Duke would reply though his son wasn't the best academically, Ezekiel was already able to use magic. But Claude would stop him there, after seeing Athy was not pleased. He would go on to say one noisy child was more than enough for him, so he decided they would continue this conversation some other time. Later, Athanasia ran to the woods, where she had a lot of books and potions. In her hand was a celestial model, capable of reading magical energy. The more latent magical energy it sensed, the faster it would spin. But when she tested it on herself, it barely moved. Both her parents could wield magic well, but it seemed she barely had any magic at all. Over in town 2 years later, Lillian would stop her carriage to buy some fruits for the princess. The vendors around who saw this believed Claude really loved his daughter, and rumors began spreading that he had accepted her as the next in line to rule the Obelia Empire. Luca, who was watching nearby, saw Lillian and found it intriguing since she was supposed to have died. He wondered who could have possibly changed her fate, and then used magic to trace the person that had done this. Back in the palace, Athy recited a poem flawlessly, while her father and the maids were all charmed by how well she read. Duke Alpheus then walked in, and Athy wasn't the least bit happy to see him. He was still pushing the motion for her to have a study companion even after 2 years. This time, he proposed someone new who was the same age as her, and it was Jeanette. As she heard the name, she wondered what exactly was happening. She thought maybe Duke Alpheus was scheming to get Jeanette closer to her father. Since Jeanette had studied law, Alpheus felt the princess was lacking in that area. But she proved him wrong. She scoffed, telling the Duke he was so silly, and asking him if he was trying to tease her. She began quoting different articles of the Obelian Empire's Code of Law. Section 1, Article 1. The use of black magic was prohibited. Article 2. Keep justice in your heart and do not oppress the weak. Article 3. Extend a helping hand to those in distress. And Article 4. Be ever faithful to the Emperor, and do not ever deceive him. She got the Duke to apologize pretty quickly for ever doubting her studiousness. She then pointed out the different things she sought in a study companion, and then gave the Duke a poetry book for Jeanette. And seeing Athie's scribbled name on top, left the Duke speechless. She would then pat his head like a dog, and subtly reminded him that she didn't want dim-witted friends. Before leaving, Claude gave Athie a book she had asked for, while Duke Alpheus, on the other hand, would mention he looked forward to his next encounter with the princess. The princess feared she'd be sacrificed for the prosperity of the Duke's house if Jeanette and Ezekiel were to come. What frustrated her more was she couldn't do a single thing when it came to magic. The book she collected from her father was the oldest grimoire in the Obelia Empire. It had lots of old spells, and the one she was interested in particular was an ancient spell for awakening magic power. So, Athie drew a magic circle on the ground and chanted the spell. The book would slowly levitate, then fly away, leading her right to Lucas, who uttered he'd found the one who manipulates fate. Looking at him, she compared his beauty to that of a doll. Now seeing that she was just a child, he apologized, thinking he must have found the wrong person. As Felix came looking for Athie, the mage casted a spell that caused him to turn back. The princess asked for her book back, and Lucas would warn her not to chant the spell to the end, because it was extremely dangerous. Tossing her book back, he quickly vanished. By evening, Athie explained to Felix that he was controlled by someone suspicious, but he didn't understand what she was saying. Later, Felix asked Claude to allow Athie to have some friends of her age. He probably thought she was hallucinating earlier, but Claude found Felix and others incompetent for not being able to soothe one child. Athie then came right on time to see her papa for morning tea. Since she just wanted to see him, Claude teased that she didn't need any cake then, and she started sulking. But with a snap of his finger, the table was filled with all kinds of sweet cakes. Athanasia was beyond exhilarated. Tasting the chocolate first, it was absolutely delicious. It had been a while since she had some chocolate, and for some reason, chocolates had been going missing from the kitchen. She was so glad to have her father, because Lily wasn't even letting her have chocolates as well. Reminded of Felix's advice, Claude asked her if she wanted some friends of her age. If she did, he would allow her to choose who she wanted. But the princess told him she wasn't lonely. Athie didn't think she needed friends. She just wanted to live peacefully in the palace until she was 18. But to change her fate, she knew she needed magic. She remembered Lucas and wondered why he tried to stop her, making her speculate that the spell probably worked. She returned to the woods to try the spell again, and could feel the chains of something locked breaking away. Lucas would catch her trying the forbidden spell again. Seeing her eyes, he started asking if she was a descendant of any of the old emperors, but knew they all died many years ago. He mentioned that those with clear, jeweled eyes were supposed to possess tremendous magical power, but he couldn't sense any in her. So, he asked how she shifted worlds, but Athie didn't understand what he meant by that. He would then lift her up on a vine and cause bubbles to appear, which took control of her mind. Athie answered his questions truthfully. She had no magical powers, which was why she wanted magic. Still, Lucas didn't believe her, so he let the vine go, causing her to fall. But Athie would be saved by a fluffy black cloud. Scared for her life, she suddenly cast wind magic that held Lucas in place. Seeing her success, she mocked the so-called Lord Lucas and ran away. While running back to tell her father, Athanasia's vision became blurry. And just as she got to her father and Felix, out of nowhere, she coughed up blood all over her hands. Then, she fell unconscious. Seeing his daughter hurting caused the darkness to entangle his heart. Claude demanded a healing wizard immediately. After examining her, a healing mage found her illness peculiar and couldn't find any abnormalities. Afterwards, more healers were called to examine her, but none were helpful. Felix asked Claude to get some rest, but Claude would object. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. A little magician then walked in, offering to help with Athanasia's situation. She would hear her mother's voice singing to her, and it made the pain fade away. When she came to, she recognized the little magician in front of her as Lucas. She pretended to be asleep, so he teased, asking if she wanted a prince's kiss to wake her up, and thus, she cried for someone to come and save her. It was bad enough she coughed up blood. Now she had to talk to the person who caused it all. She then realized that her chest had stopped hurting, Lucas let her know that he had saved her life. If not for him, her heart would have burst and gone boom. Athy didn't understand what he meant, and asked if she had a bad heart. However, Lucas was still waiting for a thank you. That's when she realized he was a lot smaller than before. Claude, Felix, and Lillian walked in, happy to see that Athanasia was awake. Lillian was so glad she was doing better. She had been praying this past month for her recovery. Claude carried his daughter, asking if she felt pain anywhere, and luckily, she didn't. Just before she could expose who Lucas was, he interrupted her, and mentioned that the treatment had caused him to use up his last bits of energy. He explained that great magic energy suddenly awakened within the princess, and rampaged, hence why she fell into a coma. Lucas had removed the excess energy by running it through his own body. He claimed Athanasia's magical energy was of a purity rarely ever seen in Obelia, and she had the potential to become the most powerful sovereign in the kingdom's history. Felix and Lillian were really happy to hear that the princess had finally awakened her magic. Since she was still growing, Lucas let them know the incident can happen again. He would stumble, and as Claude came to help him, Lucas used his magic to trace who had changed fate. After that, he kept acting like his strength was gone. So, Claude promised to reward him one day, but for now, he wanted Lucas to remain in the palace and continue treating the princess. Seeing Lucas's smirk, Athanasia quickly realized he was just pulling an act. Claude then decided she would be moved to the Emerald Palace. The Emerald Palace had been used by generation after generation of princesses. In Athy's dreams, it was eventually Jeanette who lived there, while she was locked away in the Ruby Palace. Right now, her fate was different, but if Jeanette appeared, Athy wondered what would happen to her. At the moment, she had other things to face. She tried to use the celestial magic device to measure her powers, but the device didn't respond. She called Lucas a charlatan, pointing out the device wasn't responding at all. Lucas then explained that it wasn't a lie. Someone had sealed her powers away. It was thanks to that seal that she hadn't exploded while trying to force her magic powers to work. Since he disposed of the overflow of magical energy, he expected her to be more grateful towards him. She then asked him why he was pretending to be a child, and he answered that he'd been asleep for 400 years. With the magical energy he had now, his previous size was inefficient. He was pissed, seeing how she hated him, especially since he was sensitive. He didn't like people hating him, and if he were hurt, he couldn't spare the energy to check the condition of others, especially someone who might just explode and die. However, she felt he was faking his illness just to get a free meal. She accused him of stealing her magic and chocolates. Though he didn't deny the magic part, Lucas pointed to the creature that was stealing chocolates from the table. He threw a knife at it, causing it to turn into a strangely ambiguous cute creature, kind of like an Eevee. Is it a cat? Is it a fox? Who really knows? Athy asked him to let it go, and the little creature ran up to her. She recalled it was the same creature that had saved her in the forest earlier. Lucas called it a divine beast, which was born from the magical energy that spilled out of her. She then decided to name it Raven. Lucas warned her not to get too attached, because Raven was the reason she coughed up a lot of blood. Raven was a solid mass of her magical energy, and when she touched him, she reabsorbed some of that energy. The energy then ran rampant inside of her, causing her to cough up blood. He stated if the same thing happened again, she would die. Still, her magic was bound to overflow again, so she had to learn how to control it. She would start learning under a professor, but the floating magic she casted didn't last long. The professor believed the princess had reached her limit, and told Lillian that hard work would no longer be enough. This just made Athanasia sad. She wondered just how exactly she was supposed to control magic energy. When she saw Raven, she picked him up and became a bit more cheerful. Lucas showed up on her balcony, offering to teach her how to use magic in exchange for giving Raven to him. He boasted of being far more capable than all those other teachers. He would give Raven back as he noticed Claude walking into the room. Seeing her father, she quickly hid Raven behind her, but he already saw she was hiding something. Lucas then explained to the Duke what exactly the creature was, adding that it was better to monitor it instead of killing it to prevent the magical energy from returning to the princess's body too quickly. Claude couldn't resist Athy's pleading cute eyes, so he allowed her to keep it, on the condition that she would only hold Raven for an hour a day. Later on, she began working on her magic control again, but it failed. Thanks to the seal, she was having a really hard time. While thinking about who would be able to teach her, Lucas threw an apple at her head. Athanasia's eyes sparkled as she tried to get him to teach her how to control her magic. But he didn't see any reason to help her. Hearing Lucas's stomach growl, she got an idea. Seeing that Lucas needed to recover his magical energy, and she had a lot of that overflowing inside her, she decided to make him a deal. Entering her father's office, she saw Duke Alpheus again and couldn't believe he hadn't given up. They pitched the idea of Jeanette being her companion, but Claude let her know she was free to refuse. However, the princess decided to have Lucas as her study companion instead. Lucas then began teaching her, and the first lesson was for her to control a pen with her mind. But that didn't turn out very well. After that, a lot more overwhelming lessons came to Athy, and she found Lucas so infuriating, but she refused to give up. After countless days, Lucas found her asleep in the library while she was unconsciously floating the pen beside her. He would ask her why she was working so hard, and Athy replied it was only natural for her to work hard when her life was at stake. It wasn't just that she wanted to live. Thinking about the time she put a flower from her hair into her father's, Athy wanted to remain his most beloved daughter. That night, Felix gave Claude documents proving Lucas was a wizard of the imperial household. Though the wizards of his generation remembered his name, they knew nothing else about him. With his magic, Claude was able to find out that Lucas was from Og, so he believed the wizard wasn't dangerous. Felix commented that his love for his daughter had grown, and staring at the night sky, Claude wondered if this was what love really felt like. Whatever it may be, Athanasia thought if she worked hard, she'd be able to do it. But she was entirely mistaken. She found Lucas's sense of responsibility quite lacking. He asked if she still wanted him to teach her every little thing, but it wasn't that. It was the fact she was still new to using magic and wanted him to be nicer to her. Lucas then explained that magic was the act of using one's magical energy to set the necessary elements to work. Before she could do that, she had to become friendly with those elements first. Her previous attempts had been epic fails, and he laughed at her, mockingly calling her a genius in many different ways. Athanasia complained that he always made her do things without doing anything himself. He would then tell her that magical energy was something they were born with, and everyone used it differently. With a snap of his fingers, he poured a cup of tea and arranged the pillows on the couch. This was how he used magic, and Athanasia needed to acquire it on her own, or else it would never truly be hers. He refused to teach her the basic trick to it, and his explanations were all vague to her. She asked for some details, but he wanted her to admit she was an idiot first. She wasn't about to do that. While having lunch with her father, she focused on her pomegranate, trying to get it to split open. Seeing how taxing it was, Claude told her not to stress about it, and that instead, she should think of a different way to address her magical energy issue. And so, she was determined to figure it out herself. She'd get exhausted from all the studying, causing the book to fall on her face. Lucas told her she had such bad manners for a princess, but she blamed his teaching. He then explained this was how magic was taught, the same as 400 years ago. Athanasia still didn't fully trust him. She had no idea who he really was or where he was from. She asked about where he was born, his full name, and his line of work, and Lucas simply answered that he was a great wizard, and that was all. She found him infuriated. If she'd known how troublesome he was, she'd have asked for Duke Alpheus' son instead. She thought of Ezekiel as much more understanding and not arrogant, unlike Lucas. Seeing how she talked about him, Lucas closed his book angrily and cast a spell that teleported her. In a flash, Athanasia saw herself falling from the sky. She tried thinking about what kind of magic to use, but couldn't come up with anything. Suddenly, she landed on a young boy. Looking at her, the boy asked if she was an angel, and seeing his hair color and eyes, she realized he was Ezekiel. She took some steps back and got angry at Lucas for sending her to the Duke's house. Ezekiel would ask again if she was an angel, but Athanasia didn't answer. Thinking that she couldn't tell him who she really was, he noticed she seemed frightened. So he stood further away and bowed gracefully. Athanasia decided to tell him that she was an angel, but he noticed her jewel-like blue eyes, which only the direct descendants of the imperial line possessed. With this, he realized she must be Princess Athanasia. Duke Alpheus would come looking for his son, causing Athy to quickly hide behind the flowers. Looking at the two of them, she could tell they looked very alike. The Duke then asked his son if he was displeased with the plans for him to study in Arlanta. Ezekiel was more worried about Jeanette, because she cried about him not wanting them to be apart. However, his father told him not to bother about her selfish whims, and instead think about the prosperity of their family. Duke Alpheus believed there would have been no need for him to study abroad if he had captured Athanasia's favor. He just couldn't understand why she seemed to see him as an enemy. Ezekiel replied the princess had a right to choose choose for herself, and that it wasn't right for them to force her. He then insisted he could study in Obelia instead of going abroad. Ezekiel asked his father to reconsider his decision to send him to Arlanta, so his father told him that if he wanted things to go as he wanted, he needed to gain the skills to make that happen. As the Duke left, Athanasia apologized to Ezekiel for eavesdropping, but he didn't mind. Seeing him clenching his clothes, she decided to be here for him, since she couldn't return home anyways. She would offer to listen to his worries. Ezekiel asked if she ever felt pressure because of her family, which she did a little. He himself was proud to be the heir of a dukedom, but it meant he wasn't allowed to act solely for his own sake. Sometimes he found it hard to understand why he was alive, and other times, the scenario his father enacted made him exhausted. Athanasia noticed Ezekiel was quite level-headed, even though they were the same age. In her dreams, he was always with his father. She thought he'd be cunning like the Duke, but never imagined he'd have this sensitive side to him. She would encourage him to finish his studies as soon as possible, so he could show his father that he had the skills to get things done. Ezekiel laughed, agreeing with her. After all, the war between nobles was never ending. He could tell his father was training him to stand and fight in the face of all that. In the midst of their conversation, Lucas's spell would suddenly envelop Athanasia and take her back home. As soon as she got shot out of the portal, she landed a punch on the great wizard. She was sick of him doing whatever he pleased and wanted him to think about her feelings for once. She called out his selfish actions and saw him as an awful person. She felt so bad for suddenly leaving Ezekiel without being able to say goodbye. Seeing why she was upset, Lucas was about to send her back, but she yelled loudly at him so that the maids outside all heard her. However, they felt Athie and Lucas were the best of pals, and they couldn't be more wrong. She then stormed out of the manor, ignoring Lillian, who told her it was almost time for dinner. Out in the woods, she sat alone, thinking about how a fortnight had already passed, and she still couldn't use any new magic. If things stayed like this, everything would turn out like her dreams. Magic energy suddenly poured out from a flower, and Athanasia heard her mother's voice calling to her. She'd see a reflection of her mother in the water, and her mother commented on how she had worked so hard, letting her know it was all right if she couldn't use magic. After all, she was her beloved daughter. The princess tried to hug the manifestation of her mother, but she'd fall into the water and get drawn in by vines. As she struggled, she recalled Lucas's words and was able to form a water sphere to pull herself out. At that moment, Lucas teleported to the scene. He told her that she had just acquired water magic. Athanasia would hug him, expressing her excitement at being able to escape the water lotus, especially since back then, she couldn't escape on her own. Athanasia admitted his words had an effect, and she thanked him. She asked if he would continue teaching her, and he agreed. On their way back, Lucas asked if she wasn't frightened of him, considering she punched him even though he was a great wizard. But she didn't care. It wasn't like he was going to punch her back. And of course, he had no intentions of fighting with a child. Returning, Lillian was shocked to see the princess soaked. She asked what happened, and Athanasia answered that she just laid in some grass. Unexpectedly, Claude showed up behind her, asking what kind of magic they were studying, and then took both her and Lucas inside. On another day, Athanasia cast a spell on the teacup in front of her, slowly lifting it to herself. She happily showed it to Lucas, and he commended her excellent skills, while boasting of being a genius, even though she was the one doing the hard work. He figured it was time to teach her the next piece of magic. She told him she wanted to learn how to make people float, but she wasn't at that level yet. Making objects float was foundational magic. If she wanted to make people float, she had to make large objects float first. When she asked how large, Lucas demonstrated by lifting both of them, including all the furniture. As he set everything down, he poured himself a cup of tea. Athie acknowledged how impressive his skills were, but quickly reminded him to return her cup. Studying magic was hard for her, and she wondered how other people did it. She considered asking Ezekiel, recalling how she disappeared last time without saying goodbye. So, she asked Lucas to send her to Duke Alpheus's home. She claimed to have important business, but he refused, stating that his magical energy was too precious to waste. Considering Athanasia had scolded him the last time he did as she asked, Lucas refused to help her anymore. So, with her cute eyes, she pleaded, calling him a strong and dashing wizard. Unable to resist her charm, he agreed, and with a snap of his fingers, he teleported her. Moments later, Athanasia saw herself crashing into the Duke's chimney. She bumped her head trying to get out. That's when Ezekiel showed up, recognizing her as the angel from last time. He extended a hand to help her get up, and commented on how she always appeared so suddenly. Athanasia told him angels were free-spirited, just like how it was written in fairy tales. Ezekiel would dust off the ash on her dress, making her think about how attentive he was. He was like a natural big brother. Then, he noticed the color of her eyes had changed since last time. Before leaving this time, Athanasia had asked Lucas to change the color of her eyes, so he made them a deep garnet red like his. Ezekiel then asked why she had come. With the way she disappeared last time, he was worried something bad had happened. but he was glad to see her safe. She explained it bothered her that she was unable to say goodbye, which made him very happy to hear. Ezekiel had been thinking about her this morning, wondering how much he'd have to pray for the heavens to grant his wish to let him see her again. She was a bit flustered with how straightforward he spoke. Seeing the bags by the side, she realized he was leaving soon. In 2 days, there'd be a ship leaving for Atlanta. It was a country across the sea, far from Obelia. In Athanasia's memories, Ezekiel ended up as the future duke. He was supposed to be raised carefully and protected as the heir. He would also fall in love with Jeanette, become her spouse, and they'd live a happy life together. Lost in thought, Athanasia stumbled over the luggage. But Ezekiel would catch her before she fell. She tried picking up the books she knocked over. However, he told her not to worry as he would handle it. She could tell he was working so hard, seeing he'd been reading books she hadn't even read yet. Ezekiel believed his father was making the right decision. Although it was far away, there were still good teachers in Atlanta. When she asked when he'd return, he answered when he'd earned the right to meet with the princess. Jeanette would knock on the door, calling for Ezekiel, and meeting her, he explained that the room was scattered because he was packing. She offered to help, but Ezekiel told her not to worry. She then brought out a book, wanting him to read it to her. However, they had already read it 2 days ago. So, she instead asked if he could comb her doll's hair, but it was hanging outside since she had just washed it. Still looking for a way to spend time with him, she asked that they go to the greenhouse and look at the roses. Seeing how uninterested Ezekiel was, Jeanette suspected there was someone in his room. He'd deny it, telling her to wait so he could close the windows. He then got permission to go from Athy. From just hearing Jeanette's voice, Athanasia could tell she was a lovely girl. Jeanette had appeared in her prophetic dreams for so long, she was as beautiful as an angel. Her mother, Penelope, was Duke Alpheus's cousin and Claude's former fiancé. According to rumor, she wasn't satisfied with Claude because he wasn't the crown prince, so she broke off their engagement. But after Claude was crowned emperor, she regretted her decision. After that, she latched onto another member of the royal family, but he went missing. Before she died, she gave birth to a child with jeweled eyes, and that was Jeanette. Raised by Duke Alpheus, Jeanette grew into a beautiful, elegant woman, and with the Duke's introduction, she'd eventually catch Claude's eye. Everyone loved her, and she became happy as a princess, while Athy remained in the shadows. Suddenly, Lucas approached Athy, startling her. He asked who Jeanette was, questioning if she was a chimera or a child who had been altered by black magic. Athy and Lucas then went into the greenhouse to spy on Ezekiel and Jeanette. Thanks to Lucas's stealth magic, they couldn't be detected. He decided to take some time to observe Jeanette. Lucas noticed the wavelength of her magical energy wasn't pure imperial family. There was something else mixed in, and he could sense an aura of black magic emanating from her body. Seeing that Jeanette had the same blue eyes as Athanasia, he wondered if they were sisters. Meanwhile, Ezekiel asked Jeanette if there was any song she wanted to play, but she was happy to listen to whatever he would play on the piano. As he began playing a calm melody, Athy was trying to get Lucas to stop spying on them. Suddenly, Jeanette started crying because she wanted to always be able to hear Ezekiel play the piano. She offered to ask Duke Alpheus not to send him away, but Ezekiel told her it was his will as well. He always granted her requests, but this was one he couldn't fulfill. He assured her that this wasn't goodbye forever. Athanasia was surprised to see that Jeanette suffered sad goodbyes too. No matter how much you tried to stop them, you couldn't change the way they ended. Raised without a parent's love, Athanasia and Jeanette were alike, both alone and sad. Athy then felt like seeing her father. Lucas would ask her if she had seen Jeanette's future, but she nervously responded that not even her father could do that. Regardless, he already knew Athanasia wasn't a normal child. Lucas's interest grew with each passing day, eager to know how the future would unfold. Athy happily returned to her father, hugging him warmly as he carried her in his arms. Since she'd been so busy studying, she just wanted to see him. It was tiring and she was lacking in sleep, but she wouldn't give up so easily. At the beginning, Claude thought it didn't matter if she gave up, but feeling her determination now, he encouraged her to keep doing her best. She suddenly asked if he'd love her forever, and he promised he'd always. Lying on her bed, she thought about how she had met different people from her dreams, but at some point, reality turned into something completely different from her dreams. Her father didn't treat her like a pest, and Ezekiel wasn't like his father at all. Maybe she let the dreams influence her too much. On the other hand, Lucas noticed the deviation in fate was growing larger, and he was looking forward to see where the princess was leading this story. In the Obelia Empire, turning 14 is a momentous occasion. Boys and girls make their debut in society at 14 years old. and in a formal public square, they revealed their dancing for the first time. With time passing by, Athanasia's 14th birthday drew near. The dance instructor would praise her splendid dancing. There was only 1 month left until her debutante ball, so she asked Athanasia to choose a dance partner worthy of her as soon as possible. There were a lot of options for her to choose from, which made her conflicted. A 14th birthday was arduous work. Ever since her 5th birthday, her papa showered her with gifts every year, sparkling jewels, lovely accessories, and splendid dresses. Athanasia was surprised when she received a key on her 7th birthday. It was for the library, which His Majesty had built, and it was all for her. However, her papa had never come to any of her birthday parties. After all, Athanasia's birthday was the anniversary of her mother's death, too. But Lily and Felix had always celebrated with her. Even though she understood, she still wished for her father to attend at least one. Entering the room, Lucas levitated the pictures of Athanasia's potential dance partners. He teased her, while asking if she had found someone she liked. Seeing how she got upset, he assumed her standards were high. He figured none of these men measured up to Ezekiel for her. She told him to quit his blabbering, because she was trying to think. Lucas knew she was thinking of how to spend her birthday with her father. She always fretted about it every year. He tried telling her to simply ask her dad, but Athanasia had a sad look on her face and would ask to be left alone for a while. Later, she would have afternoon tea with her dad. On a side note, 9 years total pass since meeting him, and he still looks exactly the same. What's up with that? Claude asked if she had found a dance partner. Since it was her first dance in society, her partner's standing would affect her reputation. He offered to help, but Athanasia told him not to worry, assuring she would find a partner soon. Then, he asked what she wanted for her birthday. Athanasia recalled Lucas telling her to be honest with her father, so she requested to spend her birthday with him. She immediately regretted asking that, because Claude would ask her to request anything other than that. But with a somewhat sad air, she told him to forget about it, saying that being together all the time like this was enough to make her happy. As she left, Felix decided to escort her. Athie asked if her request was selfish, but he felt it was natural. After all, she was Claude's daughter. He mentioned that every year on her birthday, Claude closed all doors to the palace and didn't let anyone near. Then, Felix asked about her dance partner, and he'd be shocked when Athanasia said she wanted to dance with him. He knew this would incite Claude's wrath and claimed that there were others more worthy than he was. But Athie assumed he just didn't want to dance with her. Lily tried cheering her up, speculating that Claude was probably hoping to fill the role of her debut dance partner himself. These days, many people chose partners their own age, so it seemed that few were escorted by those older than them. Lily reminded Athie that her father cared for her very much. When choosing her study companion, though he was very concerned, he still prioritized the choice she made. Athanasia then wondered if her papa was offering to dance with her earlier. Later on, while Athie was practicing her dance, she was startled as Lucas stepped in, causing her to trip. But he would catch her, and then tease her for not protecting herself with magic. Athanasia started struggling, pushing him away and causing them to fall. She wondered if he had come here to make fun of her. Getting up, her ankle hurt because she had twisted it. Lucas would use his magic to heal her while apologizing. He made it clear that he hadn't come to make fun of her, and he also apologized for meddling in matters between her and her father. Athie was quite shocked to see him apologizing. She offered to forgive him if he helped her practice, and so the greatest wizard in Obelia would be her partner. Then, the treasure of Obelia, the princess, would forgive his rudeness. Hannah came across and mistook Lucas for Athie's debut dance partner, and she quickly ran off to let everyone know. Lucas laughed at the situation, stating he simply expressed his honest emotions. He told Athanasia to learn from him when it came to things like this, advising her to confront her father with her true feelings and listen to her heart. The next morning, Lucas gave Athanasia a hard magic theory test. She was quickly done with it and tossed the paper to him, leaving him shocked when he saw that all her answers were correct. When Lily came to her room, Athanasia was all packed and ready for her dance lessons. On her way out, Felix invited her to come see the flowers in the garden, but the princess had other plans. Felix, Lucas, and Lily noticed Athie was quite busy these days, and were all curious as to what she was doing. Claude hadn't even been able to see her as well. Meanwhile, she spent the whole day painting in her room. She arrived late for tea with her father, but she still enjoyed eating with him. Claude brought up how she hadn't come to visit much as of late, so he thought she didn't want to see him. She would then confess that she had a special present for him, even though he said he didn't need presents. On her birthday, he always gave her presents full of his feelings, which made her very happy. That was why this year, she wanted to give her papa something. instead of receiving this time, she would be the one giving. She reminded him there weren't any rules stating she couldn't give presents. Claude had so many portraits in his palace, but anytime Athie looked at them, she felt something was missing. As she revealed the painting, Claude's eyes widened in amazement. This was why she had been locking herself in her room lately and pushing herself without much sleep. She had also used magical paints to make the portrait last forever. Her papa always wished for her happiness, so she wanted to do something for him too, and make him happy. Athanasia wanted her father to be the first one to congratulate her at her debutante ball, so she asked him to dance her first dance with her. Athanasia's 14th birthday was finally here, and the maids showered her with gifts. They had even baked a cake for her. Athie had so much fun today. Lucas would come through her balcony, and she told him that he was late while asking for her present. He then told her to close her eyes and count to 3, and upon opening them, she was met with beautiful fireworks lighting up the night sky, and she thanked the great wizard. So much had changed these past few years. There were more people watching over her now, and she was glad to have met them. Right now, Athie was truly happy, and she wished this happiness could reach her papa, too. Staring at his daughter's portrait in the room, Claude thought about how he tried to reject it. But Athanasia insisted, reminding him that she was his daughter. He also remembered all the times they shared and how much she had grown. Every year when this day came, she wanted him to remember that both she and her mother were always by his side. The huge doors opened, with the man announcing the shining sun of Obelia and its beautiful pearl arrived. The crowd cheered and clamored over their majesty, introducing the rumored Princess Jeanette himself. Noting her elegant air, they believed Princess Athanasia was plain in comparison. Athanasia would wake up in a cold sweat from the nightmare. It had been a long time since she had that dream, making her wonder why it came now. During another dance practice, she accidentally tripped. Her instructor noticed she looked tired. The event was nearly upon them, and she would show herself to nobles from all over the empire for the first time. Claude was looking forward to it, so she felt she needed to live up to his expectation. She feared that if Jeanette appeared, her papa would find out she wasn't his only daughter. When she asked him to dance her first dance with her, he didn't give an answer. But whether he danced with her or not, she wasn't allowed to make any mistakes. The maids were worried about the way Athanasia was stressing herself out, so they asked Lily to tell her to rest because she had fallen so many times during today's lessons. Lily knew Athanasia was waiting for her father's answer. Just then, someone came reporting a messenger from the Garnet Palace arrived. The maids brought the news to Athie, letting her know that her father would serve as her partner, and of course, be her escort as well. Her eyes lit up with joy. Then, she excitedly went to try on the dress and shoes that had arrived. Afterwards, she served Lucas a cake, telling him to get some rest since he'd been working so hard. Lucas assumed she was plotting something. Then, she asked him to turn into his adult form and practice with her. With the debutante ball coming soon, she wanted him to help with her training. But Lucas wanted to know why he had to transform. She explained that her papa would be dancing with her, and the current Lucas wasn't tall enough to match Claude's height. The great wizard refused, because the last time he helped, she kept stepping on his toes. However, she promised she had improved since then. Lucas would conjure up a dummy, telling her to practice with it instead. He was apparently too busy breathing. The dummy had no joints or face, so she found it kind of creepy. She yelled at him to at least make a doll that worked like a real human, but he didn't want to. While trying to dance with the dummy, Athanasia would trip and fall, all because the doll was so flappy. She was exhausted and wished she asked Felix to help instead. Lucas questioned if she was trying to get him killed, knowing what Claude would do. Thinking of another partner, Athanasia recalled that Ezekiel had returned. In order to present Jeanette at the debutante ball, the whole family was attending together. It was said that Ezekiel had graduated from the academy in Arlanta at the top of his class. Considering it's been 7 years since she last saw him, she couldn't help but wonder what he looked like. Lucas somewhat angrily told her to go see him, since she was so curious. And with a snap of his fingers, she was teleported away. The next moment, Athanasia was falling through the skies again, only to land in Ezekiel's arms. She never failed to surprise him. He missed her. 7 years ago, she disappeared so suddenly. He thought he'd never see her again, but was relieved to see her now. Athanasia wondered why he was so sparkly and happy. He was nothing like he was 7 years ago. He noticed she had changed too, but was still able to recognize her. Then, they heard Jeanette calling for Ezekiel, while having searched all over for him. Athanasia told him that he needed to go, but being bold, he would grab her hand, saying he wanted to take her somewhere, and that if he left her now, he felt she would disappear again. Ezekiel then brought Athanasia to a field of flowers, where he usually came when he wanted to be alone. It was his secret spot. She thought it was lovely. After he first met her that day 7 years ago, he always went to the spot every day. Even while he was studying abroad, he went once every half year without fail, and today was the same. Though they had only met for moments, Ezekiel wondered why he did this. With Athanasia asking him how Arlanta was, he told her that he had a good time. He had finished the entire curriculum in just 6 years, and she would ask him to delve into some fun stories. When he first arrived, it was difficult. Being the son of an Obelian duke, people doubted he could do anything and thought he was just here to boost his credibility. Ezekiel studied Arlantian, but when he actually tried to use it, everything went wrong. And of course, people continued to mock him. He studied frantically to keep up with his lessons, and then he realized the level at the academy was really high. The well-learned teachers, the abundance of written works, the deep research into theories of sociology, everything captivated him. After graduating a year early, his professors still wanted him to keep studying in Arlanta. But of course, in order to succeed his house, he needed to return to his beloved homeland. He was the heir to a ducal house, so he needed to make sure not to dishonor his family. Ezekiel always looked so at ease. Athanasia never thought he'd be feeling so much pressure. Everyone came up against a wall at times, so she was determined to do her best too. He then mentioned there was one more reason for his haste. He tucked a flower behind Athanasia's hair, telling her that while he was away from Obelia, there was a certain someone he didn't want to escape his reach. At that moment, Athanasia was about to be teleported back. Ezekiel promised that next time, he would come to her. When she returned, she reprimanded Lucas for always sending her back and forth however he liked. That being said, she felt a bit embarrassed just now, so perhaps it was for the best. She noticed Lucas looked irritated, and he admitted he was in a bad mood. Then, he flicked her forehead and walked away, leaving her quite confused. After that, Athanasia would continue her dance lessons, moving gracefully with each step. Her instructor complimented her, saying her dancing was perfect today. Although it was early, she suggested they stop here so that Athanasia could rest enough for tomorrow. At night, Athanasia asked Lily if people would really accept her as a princess at tomorrow's debutante ball. Lily had no doubts, saying they'd all become captive to the princess's charms. Still, Athanasia felt nervous, but Lily made her feel a little better. Lily mentioned how the princess had grown so much. When she first met, she was so small that even holding her made Lily nervous. Now, she's grown into a beautiful lady. Athanasia worked earnestly and diligently. She deciphered difficult old tomes. Watching her devote herself to acquiring magic made even Lucas acknowledge her efforts. Even with her dance lessons for the ball, Athanasia never went easy on herself. Lily was so proud of her, being able to watch over the princess as she grew. To walk beside her made Lily really happy. She was certain Athanasia's father felt the same, and assured her that everything would go well. With tomorrow being the debutante ball, Athanasia's father would dance her debut dance with her. This didn't happen in her dreams of the future. She hoped the accumulation of her hard work would be able to change the course of fate. Would she become a daughter her papa was proud of? At last, the day of the debutante ball had arrived. The maids were all getting Athanasia ready and attending to other preparations, from baths to dressing the princess's hair, and also getting her dress and jewelry ready. Athie had no idea that preparing for the debutante ball was this much work. Soon after, Claude arrived in a chariot to pick up his daughter. Flowers slowly filled the air as the princess made her lovely appearance. She was truly a sight to behold. She walked down, approaching her father. This was the first time she had seen him in formal wear outside of diplomatic meetings. He complimented her, saying she was beautiful as she took his hand. On the way to the ball, Athanasia could hear voices echoing inside, and she began feeling nervous. She couldn't help but wonder if things would happen the same way they did in her dreams. Seeing her anxious looks, Claude asked her where the courage that led her to pinch his face so long ago was. He offered to have everyone keep their heads bowed until everything was over, just like the soldiers around. But Athie didn't want that. So long as her papa was with her, she was fine. He told her not to worry about anyone else then. Elsewhere, Duke Alpheus approached Jeanette, letting her know the ball was about to begin, and that she'd finally be able to meet her father and younger sister. He would wait for the right time to inform Claude, promising Jeanette that she'd be able to return to the imperial family. Soon after, the doors to the hall opened, and everyone admired Claude and Athanasia as they walked down the stairs. The princess's beauty was stunning. Then, the father and daughter graced the dance floor, putting on a lovely performance. Athanasia told her father how Madame Pompadour had complimented her dancing, and just then, she mistakenly stepped on his foot. After that, she almost fell, but Claude was able to catch her, making their show even more spectacular. She was so embarrassed, but he told her not to panic and just follow his lead. In doing so, the crowd applauded them, and after dancing, Claude would tell the princess to go enjoy herself with people her age. While she was chatting with some ladies, Athanasia caught sight of Duke Alpheus. She wondered if he was looking for her father to introduce Jeanette like he did in her dreams. She didn't want that to happen. Suddenly, a couple of men approached her, each asking for a dance. In seconds, she was surrounded by more people. It was all too overwhelming for her. She fumbled her words while trying to respond. Ezekiel would show up behind her, asking the other men to back off because the princess had already given her promise to dance with him. As they left, he apologized to Athanasia for acting without her permission. Then, he humbly asked to dance with her. Although she accepted, she was a bit nervous, seeing he already knew her identity as the princess. Meanwhile, Duke Alpheus met with Claude. While making small talk, he tried to imply that if there were other princes and princesses, His Majesty would cherish them in the very same way. But Claude denied that, so long as Athanasia didn't duplicate herself. The Duke then mentioned he had a foster daughter who was lovely, meek, and kind, and would be a good friend for Athanasia if she ever got lonely. However, Claude suddenly saw someone who seemed to catch his attention. He then told the Duke he had no interest in whatever he was saying. After Athanasia and Ezekiel were done dancing, he told her he was honored to share the moment with her. While he was leaving, the princess turned her attention to Duke Alpheus and her father, but she refused to let her worries overtake her. Instead, she would show everyone her determination and become a daughter her papa would be proud of. She called everyone's attention, letting them know she wanted to give a gift to her father, Obelius' son. Chanting her magic, she conjured a beautiful scene of night sky filled with stars. And as a flower bloomed, an image of his wife, Empress Diana, appeared before Claude. Athanasia would play a soft melody on the piano as her parents took the dance floor. She had thought of this because she wanted her parents to see her together, and now she was truly happy. Everyone was amazed and applauded the princess for such a wonderful display of magic. While Duke Alpheus silently left, Jeanette was still in her room, wondering if she'd be able to meet her father and sister today. On the carriage ride back, Claude gave Athanasia a present. He complimented how magnificent the debutante ball was, and was shocked at how much she'd grown. Then, he wished her happy birthday, though he was late, considering she wanted him to be the first to congratulate her. At the Alpheus home, the Duke was approached by the man in the mask from the ball, the same man that Claude took notice of. He explained that things weren't going as they hoped, and Alpheus told him Claude was too wary. When the Duke asked why he showed up at the ball, the man answered that he had a plan in place. Then, Jeanette came knocking on the door, and the masked man vanished immediately. Duke Alpheus let her in, telling her that Athanasia was the center of attention at the ball, and that Claude was in no mood to accept another daughter. So, he asked her to be patient for a bit longer. Back in Athanasia's room, she opened her father's present, seeing a lovely red bow. With it was a small letter that read, "Athanasia, I wish for your eternal happiness." Athanasia struggled to sleep at night. She could still hear the music from her debut dance. Everything had gone so well, and this was the first time she had seen her papa's face so happy. Unlike in her dreams, Duke Alpheus didn't get to introduce Jeanette to Claude, which made her wonder what they were talking about then. For some reason, she felt uneasy. While she stared into the starry night, Lucas approached her. Leaning towards her face, he didn't see any traces of tears, but could tell she was depressed. He asked if something had happened at her debutante, but she told him nothing was wrong. Then, he teased her for dancing with someone other than her father, and possibly stepping on someone's foot. She was unable to deny her clumsiness, and just as she insisted that everything was fine, she felt a sudden pain in her heart, causing her to fall. Lucas would catch her, explaining that the intense swing in her emotions made her magical energy overflow. So, he decided she'd train even harder starting tomorrow. Using his magic, he tucked her back into bed. He wondered what she would do if he weren't here. His mind was conflicted between leaving her to save his magic or staying behind to help her. He ultimately decided to stay with her a bit longer, seeing that she was having dreams again. The following day, Athanasia got tons of letters from nobles inviting her to their parties. Hannah suggested she accept the one from Marquis Elaine's household because their son was said to be dashing with a promising future. That's when Lily reminded her that the decision was left for the princess to make. She advised the princess not to think too hard about it. Athy wondered if it'd be alright for her to go, since she'd never left the palace grounds before. She decided to ask her father. On the boat ride, Claude refused. Recalling the way nobles surrounded her during the ball, he felt jealous. He also remembered that when she was much younger, she fell into the water during their boat excursion. She thought he was a lot scarier back then. She then asked to see a flower up close, hoping that when Claude was relaxed from seeing beautiful flowers, she could ask him to leave the palace. He felt she had strange tastes, but using his powers, he lifted the lotus from the water, revealing its tentacles beneath, and told her to look as much as she liked. She quickly clung to her father, screaming in fear, and told him to throw it out because she didn't like it at all. In her struggle, she tipped the boat, causing the two of them to fall into the water. She was embarrassed because her father had saved her again. This was the greatest mistake of her life. Not only did she not convince him to give her permission to leave the palace grounds, she also got a scolding. Athanasia decided to help Lily in the kitchen for a change of pace. When Lily asked if she had decided which party to attend, the princess complained about her father being overprotective, refusing to let her leave the palace. When Felix showed up, Athanasia joked about having him take her away from here, but he'd tell her that Claude had a gift for her and asked her to come. Felix took her to a beautiful garden of roses, which Claude had been preparing for a long time. Athanasia was free to use it however she liked, so she could use the garden to host a tea party. Lily then asked her to think about who she wanted to invite. Later, Hannah came to collect the invitations Athanasia was writing, so she could send them off. One of those letters in particular was sent to Jeanette. When Jeanette came to the palace, she was lost, trying to find her way around. She would be stopped by Claude and his guards. She explained that Athanasia had invited her and tried to introduce herself, but Claude did not care for her name. If not for his daughter, Jeanette wouldn't have left unscathed. She feared that he hated her now, but thought he wouldn't treat her so coldly once he knew the truth. At the party, the ladies were jealous of how Claude cared for Athie, seeing how beautiful the garden was. They also complimented Athanasia for looking like something out of a fairy tale during the ball. Then, they became captivated by Felix's handsomeness, seeing him stand guard nearby. They knew him as the Blood Red Knight, Sir Felix Robin, who helped Claude save Obelia from black magic. However, Athie was shocked to hear that Felix had such a nickname. The girls also heard the princess had a genius wizard with her as well. To them, Lucas's hair was as black as the night sky, and he had shining crimson eyes. His gaze was so full of grief, it was like that of a wolf. They also remembered Ezekiel had danced with the princess during the ball. Jeanette noticed she wasn't accustomed to social situations like this, so she offered to pass along their comments to Ezekiel. When the girls realized Jeanette was Ezekiel's second cousin, they started asking her about his interests. Athanasia took a moment to step out because she was getting exhausted. The girls were all lovely, but keeping up with them was taxing for her. Just like in her dreams, Jeanette was gaining their trust and love. Jeanette then approached her, asking if the conversation was boring, and Athanasia explained that she just wasn't used to it, since it was her first tea party. She had no idea what to talk about, and worried that people would find her boring. She feared they might not want to be her friend, but Jeanette assured her it was fine, and that she really wanted to be friends, even asking Athanasia to come to her home sometime. The other girls caught her inviting the princess, and they all wanted to extend their invitations as well. Returning to the castle, Athie expressed how much fun she had. She also got to make a lot of friends. Seeing Lucas sleeping on the couch, she recalled how her friends had described him, and although she hated to admit it, he was quite handsome. But she thought his personality was the worst. He then woke up, startling her, and after removing some filthy magic from her hair, he went back to sleep. The princess worried that he might be ill, but getting no response from him, she angrily left the room. However, Lucas had also seen an aura of black magic on Claude earlier today, making him wonder where it could have come from. In a magic tower, the mysterious man, seen with Duke Alpheus, found a mountain of treasure there, just as he expected. He then decided he'd prepare a little gift for the princess. While walking around the library, Athanasia recalled that Jeanette and Helena mentioned they liked Knight's poetry. She would go around, searching for a manuscript, but never expected to suddenly run into Ezekiel. She asked why he was in her personal library, and he explained that due to living abroad for a long time, he had forgotten Obelia's geography. Ezekiel supposedly did know this place belonged to her, but she could tell he was lying. She called him a trespasser, threatening to pursue justice. But Ezekiel claimed she couldn't, because when it came to trespassing, her crimes were far greater than his. Athie was at a loss for words, as she remembered those times she came into his house without an invitation. She complained that he was just like his father. Ezekiel would apologize for his rudeness, and was willing to accept any punishment, but seeing the one he'd been thinking about brought him happiness. He would request to approach her more closely. However, Lucas would show up, stopping him and letting him know that His Majesty would disapprove. Ezekiel asked what gave a wizard the right to enter the princess's library, and Lucas answered that he was employed by the imperial household. The air became very tense as they shot each other threatening glares. This was a standoff between gentle charisma and a lone wolf. The princess got them to stop their argument, explaining to Ezekiel that Lucas was permitted to enter this place, and there was no need to verify his position. Lucas boasted of being a wizard who was chosen instead of Ezekiel some years ago. Ezekiel would then excuse himself, handing the princess the book in his hands before leaving. Lucas then snatched the book from Athanasia, teasing her when he saw it was a romance novel. On their way back, the princess mentioned how they butted heads back in the library, but Lucas didn't care about a guy like that. Athe reminded him that Ezekiel was of House Alpheus. The Alpheus lands were abundant, and because they had mines, it was said they were very wealthy. Despite all that, Lucas still saw himself as the winner. The princess mentioned that Ezekiel was taller than him. That's when Lucas returned to his adult form, reminding her that he was only pretending to be a child to match her. Looking at her like this, he claimed the exalted princess was truly puny. Athe panicked and started hitting him so he would return back to normal. She warned him not to transform without permission again. Back at the manor, the princess wondered what to do in return for all the presents she received at her tea party. Lucas told her she didn't have to do anything, but she mentioned that the gifters were her precious friends, just like him. She got embarrassed, thinking he was going to get an ego from this. Lucas questioned if she saw them as equal to him, and as Athe began saying he was a little more important, she quickly regretted it because she didn't want him to get conceited again. Feeling proud of himself, the great wizard offered to follow her to town to help her pick her return gifts. He obviously got cocky again. Then, Athe asked how they'd even get out of the palace. With a snap of Lucas's fingers, they were teleported to town. With this, the princess confirmed he could actually use teleportation magic. He would then change their outfits so the princess wouldn't stand out too much. She was amazed by the number of people here, the fruits, the food, and the pretty pieces of fabric all around. They stopped at a cafe where she ordered many different kinds of treats. It made Lucas question if there was some kind of magic that prevented her from gaining weight after eating so much. When Lucas noticed Jeanette outside the window, Athe quickly hid her face. Then he used magic to help them hear Jeanette's discussion with the vendor. Jeanette was shopping for a present to give to someone precious to her. The person was really important to her, and she was hoping her feelings would reach them. The vendor then suggested choosing something at the magic market. Though it was a dangerous place, it was best for Jeanette to go with someone. Athe wondered what kind of place the magic market was, and Lucas told her it was a place where one could buy unusual or forbidden things, like books on black magic, cursed items, or even monsters. Hearing this, the princess decided to go there as well. They would silently tail Jeanette, trying to make sure she didn't notice them. While Jeanette went into a shop to look for something to buy, Lucas sensed an aura of black magic outside. He quickly left to check it and told Athe to wait for him. As he scanned through the crowd, he found a surge of powerful black magic that shocked him. Meanwhile, Anastasius approached Jeanette, and she saw that he had a resemblance to Claude. Anastasius then took a look at the pearl she was holding, and without her knowing, he imbued it with black magic. On the other hand, Athe found the man quite suspicious. With Jeanette finishing her shopping, the princess decided to return home. Athanasia searched around town for Lucas, but couldn't find him anywhere. Meanwhile, Anastasius decided it was time for the princess to face her ordeal. The curse he placed on the pearl Jeanette bought suddenly released a huge orb of black magic, summoning a monster in town. The monster charged towards Jeanette, but Athe showed up just in time, using her magic to save her. While she struggled to hold the monster back, Lucas was cleaning up the traces of black magic around town. Seeing the explosion in the distance, he realized what the culprit's true objective was. So, he released Raven to go save the princess. Athe was barely holding on, and at this rate, her magic would soon run out. She managed to bind the monster briefly. Jeanette's pearl caused the beast to become more powerful, breaking its bind. As the girls ran away, Athe told Jeanette to hide while she acted as a decoy. Soon after, Raven showed up and began fighting the monster. The princess used the chance to chant a spell, conjuring a bow in her hands. She would fire an arrow of light that defeated the monster and shattered the cursed pearl. After that, Jeanette asked Athe why she was here. The princess told her it was a secret and made her promise not to tell anyone. Jeanette would then present her gift, but was shocked to see the pearl had broken. But Athe didn't mind, claiming that her feelings were the greatest present. She then asked Jeanette to address her by her name. They were friends, after all. When Lucas returned, Athe started complaining about the way he abandoned her. Though she boasted of defeating the monster, he teased her for acting smug for defeating such a weak monster. After that, they headed home, not knowing Anastasius was keeping an eye on them through a magic orb. The following day, Felix informed Claude that there'd been a drastic increase in the farmers' requests for wizards. Monsters appear every year around harvest time, and many people have been injured at times. But the wizards they had stationed in every region have always had sound anti-monster measures. However, this year was different. Felix believed the sudden increase in monsters was likely due to someone behind it. Claude then asked him to summon wizards and put a support plan together. Meanwhile, Athy couldn't believe Lucas used magic to create the gold coins they used yesterday. He boasted that something like that was easy with a snap of his fingers. She was furious at him for tricking people like that, and she feared they'd be put in prison. He decided they could just go give them the real thing. Since Athanasia was a princess, she must have money. However, she never bought things for herself, so she actually didn't have money on hand. Her jewels had the imperial seal on them, and if she sold them, people would know she snuck out. Felix would bring some sweets for the princess, explaining that her father was sad about not being able to join her. He told her about the monster situation, which was why Claude was gathering wizards. But if the princess ever found herself in a bind, Felix said she was free to come to him. She would then ask him for a favor. Afterwards, she went back to all the vendors in town, paying them with real money and apologizing for using ones made with magic. When she was done, all the money was gone. Lucas was angry at her for dragging him into such a tedious mess, but she told the great wizard to use the money he had earned next time. He shot back, reminding her that she used to borrow money and calling her a pauper. Since it was Felix, he felt it wouldn't matter if she didn't pay back. She then stormed out furiously, trying to figure out how she could pay him back. Thinking of how to earn some money, the princess told Felix she'd like to participate in this year's harvest as a wizard. Not only could she earn money this way, but she'd also be helping her papa. She was worried her father wouldn't let her, but Felix thought otherwise, saying he'd be overjoyed to support her. Athanasia would meet Claude, making her request, but he argued that acting as support wasn't easy. She told him that using her powers for him and for their people was only natural as a princess. Felix supported her, explained to Claude that this was a perfect chance for the princess to demonstrate her love for the people. Claude agreed on the condition that he would pick where she goes, and she'd have to obey Felix. He then decided to send her to the district of Og, where her mother was from. She was required to send a report every day. At night, while packing her things, she used magic to fit all her items into a small purse. Starting tomorrow, she wouldn't be hearing Lucas's scoldings anymore. But she was surprised when he said he was leaving tonight. He told her that he needed to take care of a thorny problem, recalling his encounter with black magic in town. He couldn't tell her where he was going, or when he'd return either. However, he warned Athy not to get involved with Jeanette while he was gone. Athy was worried about him because she saw him as a friend, and it made her angrier because he never told her anything. He recalled his teacher's words in the past. His teacher really pitied him. He then transformed into his adult form and flew away. The next day, the princess and Felix arrived at Og and were welcomed by Count Carrie Harris. Upon seeing Athy, the Count couldn't take her seriously and assumed she wouldn't be able to endure the dangers. Suddenly, the farmers began running in fear as monsters appeared. The wizards tried to hold the beasts back with the barrier, but they'd break through. Athy would rush to the front lines, protecting a wizard who was about to be attacked. She chanted a spell, defeating all the monsters in a flash. The townspeople celebrated at night, as they all gathered around a campfire. Thanks to the princess's help, they had high hopes for this year's harvest. Now, they could rest easy and prepare for the festival. That night, Athy finally got her payment and could pay back the money she borrowed from Felix. She was very happy to have worked and earned it for herself. Count Harris would thank the princess and apologize for his rudeness earlier. He wasn't aware of her magical strength, but now she had his love and respect. Hearing how happy she was to be of use to everyone, the Count told her she was just like her mother. Apparently, he knew Athanasia's mother very well. Once, due to the evil Emperor Anastasius's black magic, the land's vitality was snatched away, and they couldn't grow any crops. They were stricken with the greatest famine in their history. At that time, Claude, who was still a prince, brought provisions for them. It was here that he met Empress Diana. Count Harris could still remember clearly how she danced during the harvest festival and how Claude stood in his younger days. Not only did Emperor Claude bring provisions, but he fought valiantly against the monsters and protected the Empress. Empress Diana also saved many lives, but as black magic persisted, famine and plagues continued to spread. To save the empire, Claude defeated the evil Anastasius, and so the Obelia Empire was freed from black magic, and everything regained a breath of vitality. Claude became emperor and took Diana as his consort. Together, they brought light to the Obelia Empire. Now, 16 years later, the princess was protecting Og. Harris was sure her parents would be very proud of her. Unbeknownst to them, Anastasia snuck into Athy's room and placed a curse on the ribbon her father gifted her. Meanwhile, in a dead forest, Lucas located the source of the black magic at a grave. On the day of the harvest festival, the town was bustling with everyone making preparations. Athy was visited by her father, and she was so happy to see him, giving him a huge hug. Then, he reminded her that she was supposed to be giving daily reports as the condition for leaving the palace. But so much had happened, she completely forgot to write any letters. Athy then asked what brought him here, and Felix explained that Claude would be performing a ritual at the magic wellspring for the festival. This time, Claude wanted Athy to accompany him. They both stood before the people, ready to perform the ceremony of the sacred offering. Count Harris presented the first wheat of the year to ripen as a symbol of Og's abundant harvest and hope. The princess would receive it as the people prayed for Obelia to shine brightly and guide them to everlasting prosperity. On their way to the wellspring, Claude noticed Athy was wearing the ribbon he gifted her. She was very fond of it because it was from him. Count Harris then informed them that everyone else was forbidden from going beyond this point, so both of them would have to proceed from here. Meanwhile, after following the traces of black magic, Lucas was led back to his tower. With the mirror there, he looked back in time, seeing that Anastasius was lured in by the books on black magic, and he wondered what he could be plotting. To his surprise, he then saw Athanasia and Claude inside the tower. Apparently, the magic wellspring is beneath the place. Claude told Athanasia that at the top of the tower lived a great wizard who had protected the wellspring for generations. Hearing this, she figured he was talking about Lucas, but she doubted the wizard who lazed around all day could be someone so important. Soon after, they arrived at the legendary wellspring, the birthplace of souls and the source of all life. It was a sacred place, but for some reason, Athanasia felt a deep pain in her chest. As they got closer, the magic energy drifted towards her. It felt warm. Claude explained that these lights were power that had overflowed from the wellspring. It was the source of the magic that tied all things together. It could read the human heart and answer only the purest of prayers. As representative of the Obelia Empire, Claude offered his heartfelt gratitude to the wellspring. Then, it was Athy's turn to do the same. Walking closer to the tree, she offered up a bundle of wheat, and she was so happy to see her gift being accepted. However, when she turned around, the curse on her ribbon activated, surrounding her in a cloud of black magic. Feeling dizzy, she fell underwater. Claude would dive in and put her in a protective bubble to save her. Just as they were about to leave, lotuses started attacking them. Claude separated the bubbles, saving Athanasia, but he was left behind. When she woke up, she saw herself in Lucas's arms. He had come because he saw she was in danger, and he noticed her hair ribbon had been tampered with, causing the dream lotuses to turn into monsters. Claude was trapped after his protection magic was triggered, and now he was sleeping within his own barrier. Lucas had tried to enter his subconscious to wake him up, but only those Claude trusted with his entire heart could enter. If he broke the barrier with force, it would damage the Emperor's mind. Athanasia then recalled Felix telling her that Claude trusted both her and Empress Diana with everything. So, she decided to go inside the barrier to wake her father up. Lucas warned that the situation was dangerous. Claude was being treated as a foreign substance, and the wellspring had already begun the purification process. If Athanasia didn't save him before the purification was complete, both of them would be erased. Still, it was too dangerous. Lucas let her know that if she failed, the dream lotuses would eat away at her mind, and she'd never return. Recalling her memories with her father, Athanasia would cry. Claude was the only family she had, so she didn't care what would happen to her. She just wanted to save him. So, she begged Lucas for help. With no other choice, Lucas cast protective magic on Athanasia. Though it wouldn't last long, he would guide her to the core of Claude's mind once she entered the barrier. But she had returned before the purification was complete. As the princess entered Claude's mind, Lucas told her that she had to find the memory engraved most deeply within Claude to wake him up. That was the core of his mind, and her only chance. Athanasia then came across an image of her mother and wondered if this was the memory her father couldn't forget. Reaching inside, she saw her mother dancing beautifully at the harvest festival. This was when her parents met. Claude was stunned by Diana's beauty as she introduced herself. The princess tried calling out to her father, but she was then surrounded by so many memories of her mother. She would come across one where Claude refused to let Diana give birth, because if she did, their child would steal her magic from her. He couldn't endure losing her, but she wanted to have this child. Eventually, she gave birth to Athanasia, after which Diana died. Claude was left in despair, losing his mind. Lucas then told the princess that this was the core of her father's mind, so she needed to wake him up now. She'd find her father crying alone in his room, questioning why Diana still appeared in his dreams. A world without her was like a nightmare. So, he would discard all of his emotions and forget everything. As the world broke apart, Athanasia tried to wake up, but she was cast away. Without color, the world was monochrome and boring. Claude was all alone. Everything was tedious and annoying. But he believed this was how he should have always been. Meanwhile, Athanasia kept desperately trying to wake her father up. Athanasia finally understood why her father's eyes were so cold when he looked at her in her dreams. Still, she desperately tried to break through the barrier with her magic. Sadly, her magic wasn't working at all. Suddenly, she'd seen an image of herself, telling her that the person she was trying to save never loved her. It reminded the princess of the first time she encountered her father in her dreams. At the time, she wasn't old enough to attend the ball, so Claude walked away from her. She longed from her father's words, but he wouldn't even look her way. Athanasia hoped that her father would attend her debutante ball. However, while everyone else mocked Athanasia in her dreams, it was Jeanette who stood beside Claude. Her father didn't see any point in her studying magic, since she didn't have the skills. People couldn't believe the princess of Obelia couldn't use magic. Even the maids saw her as a nuisance and were tired of looking after her. Athanasia tried to break away from those horrible memories, but the voice told her she was the cause of her mother's death. Because of that, her father couldn't forgive her. To win her father's love, she'd use black magic without a thought. Athanasia brought some chocolates to her father, but when Jeanette decided to taste one, she suddenly collapsed. So, the princess was quickly detained. She had been deceived by Anastasius, who gave her a potion, telling her that if she fed it to Claude, he would show her the affection she'd been wanting. But Athanasia had no idea it was poison. Still, she held on to the dream of a happy future, swearing not to make the same mistakes. Slowly, Athanasia began to give in to the dark voices, telling her that her future had been decided, and that her father wouldn't love her, even if she saved him. The dark magic was taking over, but Lucas was doing his best to hold it at bay, buying Athanasia some time. While Athanasia was trapped by the Dream Lotus, she'd suddenly hear a nostalgic voice calling her. A bright light burst forth from her forehead, setting her free. Then, she saw her mother floating down towards her. While the princess was still stunned, Diana showered her daughter with kisses. Realizing that the woman in front of her was really her mother, Athanasia hugged her tightly, expressing how she longed to see her. She told her mother about those scary dreams, but Diana explained that they weren't dreams, and that in Athanasia's original parallel world, she actually experienced those things. When she was pushed off a bridge, Diana made time turn backwards, returning her to when she was born and showing her the future. Hearing this, Athanasia felt like everything still turned out the worst possible way. She then apologized for not having the strength to wake up her papa. The Empress commended her for enduring such a heavy fate all this time. She mentioned that she had sealed off Athanasia's magic when she was a baby, but now that she was grown, Diana believed her daughter could use it well. She decided to lift the seal so that Athanasia could use her powers to wake Claude. As Diana kissed Athanasia's forehead, the princess's powers were slowly unleashed. She told Athie not to forget those warm memories, letting her know that her mama would be with her forever. With the seal lifted, the princess would use her powerful magic to rain thousands of arrows on Claude's barrier, shattering it. She told her papa that the nightmare was over and asked him to come home. As she approached him, the dark magic attacked her, but it was no match for the princess's immense power. Then, Claude eventually remembered that she was his daughter. After that, the two of them left, and their bodies returned to Lucas. Thereafter, Athanasia saw herself in a garden, and then Lucas showed up. He had decided to enter her dreams since she was still unconscious. He also mentioned that he sent Claude back to the palace. Lucas had used up all his magic energy, causing him to revert to his child form. It would take a while for his magic energy to replenish as well. He explained that the matter wasn't fully resolved yet, until they exposed the mastermind behind it. A long time ago, Lucas lived in a tower and immersed himself in magic. He had no interest in humans, but confessed now that Athanasia was his first friend. He wanted the power to protect her when danger arose, and right now, he didn't have nearly enough. Because of this, he had to leave. So, he told the princess to take care of herself. There was still so much she wanted to talk to him about, but Lucas simply asked her to wait for him. Athanasia finally woke up, seeing Felix and Lily beside her. Apparently, she'd been asleep for 10 days. She quickly asked about her father and rushed to see him. Sadly, he was still unconscious. Athanasia didn't understand why he wouldn't wake up. Even after she saved him, she started channeling her magic energy into him, despite Lily's and Felix's warnings. It was enough to finally wake Claude up. But the princess never expected her father to push her away. He asked who she was, and if she had come to assassinate him, leaving her in total shock. For some reason, Claude had lost all his memories, but thanks to Lily and Felix, he forgave her. But only under the condition of her confinement to the Emerald Palace. According to Felix, Claude had been having terrible headaches lately. Athanasia wondered why the offering went awry, and why her father had lost his memories. She had no idea what was going on, so she sent out a magic letter, hoping it would find Lucas. Meanwhile, Lucas would travel through snowy mountains, arriving at the location of a magical tree. Oh man, we're still gonna have the arc where her father loses her memories. But okay, that's it. That's the end of season 1. Having completed it, I thought this Donghua was okay. I think compared to the manhwa though, the story here was quite vapid in my opinion. And if you're familiar with the manhwa, Athanasia is supposed to be a Korean girl in her 20s who gets reincarnated into her favorite novel, where Jeanette is the heroine and Athanasia is the hated side character. The manhwa story is extremely cohesive with very pretty art. Of course, that's why it was very popular. But here, I really get a sense of all flash and no substance. Like, Athanasia being some S-tier wizard changes a lot of the dynamic. Because in the manhwa, she's more or less kind of helpless, which means she has to solve problems differently. In this final episode, they just brought her mother out of nowhere and had her tell Athi she sent her back in time as a baby because... Huh? Wasn't her mother dead at that point? Also, the romance between Lucas and Athanasia is a little weirder. I mean, I get this is fiction, we're supposed to suspend disbelief, but bro is 200 years old. And he met Athanasia as a little girl, not a little girl who reincarnated from a 20-year-old, like the manhwa. I don't know. What do you guys think? Did you like this adaptation? Did you not like it? Agree with me? Disagree with me? If there's a season 2, do you want me to keep covering it? Subscribe for more content. But for now, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.